Are you a dungeon master? Do you want to be a dungeon master? Do you have blue face paint on your face? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then you're just like me. Not only do you enjoy smashing players in the face with your axe every time they metagame, but you're also a busy person, and while prepping for a D&D game, well, sometimes that's hard. And as much as you'd like to force one of your players to run D&D for a change, well, they all suck, so it's pretty much up to you to be the forever dungeon master. And that's exactly why I get out my crayons every month and write a new issue of Lair magazine. Well, I mean, it's not just me, I have a team of people too. We all get out our crayons and write it, but yeah. Anyway, every issue of Lair magazine contains 5th edition Dungeon Master resources to help you reduce your prep time while still running amazing games for your lazy, good-for-nothing players. Every issue of Lair magazine contains 2 to 3 adventures complete with maps for online play. You know, we also sprinkle in other stuff like puzzles and traps, which, let's be honest, both suck to have to make yourself. So, I mean, wouldn't you rather just become a DM Lair patron and pay me to write them for you? I mean, you know, my team and I, with our crayons. Now, if you love your wonderful players as much as I do, consider helping me to meet my sales quota by becoming a DM Lair patron today at the link below. You'll get a new issue of Lair magazine every month and other cool stuff like map packs and bonus adventures. Okay, that's it. Please become a DM Lair patron now or I will find you.
All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? How's it going? We got an early morning stream here, Q&A stream, so throw your questions down in chat and we're gonna answer some questions and all that kind of stuff. Same thing we usually do. So we have a few things, announcements. We always have announcements and crap like that. First, obviously, we have a giveaway going on. My dog needs attention. She's like totally down here going nuts on me. She might sit here with me for a second. Hold on. Well, come here, doggy. Come here, doggy. Come here. Come here, crazy. Come here, crazy. All right, come here. All right, she's gonna sit here with me because she's going nuts on me. We're doing a giveaway today, so there's a link in the chat where you can, give us your information and stuff. We'll draw the giveaway at the end of the stream. Today's stream is only going to be a couple hours, so we're just doing 2 hours this morning. I got something I got to go to at noon my time, so I got to cut out a little bit early. But anyway, we'll draw the winner to the giveaway at the end of the stream. You can get Into the Fae, a physical copy of Into the Fae, which was our first Kickstarter, or you can get store credit to the DM Lair store. So either way. So yeah, sign up for that. We also are raising money for Canines for Warriors. They are a charity. I'm gonna cut over to their website. Give me a second. Where is this thing? There we go. They are the nation's largest provider of service dogs for veterans. They basically rescue dogs from shelters where they would probably have been euthanized, and they, train the dogs and all that kind of stuff and give them to veterans to help them out with PSTD, whatever they got going on, service dogs to help them out. So if you would like to donate to Canines for Warriors, we're raising $500 is our goal. There's a little bar at the bottom of the stream that kind of shows where we're at. We're almost there. We're probably about almost 2/3 of the way there or so. We're getting pretty close. So if you'd like to donate, all tips go to Canines for Warriors. Tips, make sure they are tips, not super chats. Remember, YouTube takes 40% of your super chats. So if you want to donate to Canines for Warriors, it needs to be a tip. There's a link in the chat where you can tip for them if you would like to do so. What else? Let's go back to this camera here. What are my other announcements and stuff I'm supposed to make? We got the giveaway. We're raising money for a charity. I think that's it for now. I think that's all the announcements. Oh, yes. My dog is starting to calm down now. I don't think she likes to be picked up, do you? She was all worked up. She was over here sleeping, just out. And then I took her outside before the stream started, and now she's all worked up, and she's just going crazy on me. Okay, we got to do our little shout outs for all of our wonderful patrons. So let's pop over to that screen right there. So everybody that you see on screen right here, they are our awesome patrons to help support all the content that we create. They do everything. I love my patrons. Without my patrons, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. My team would not be able to do what we do. They help support, obviously, these live streams that I do every week, all the videos on YouTube, the free Dungeon Master resources that we have on the dmlair.com. What else? Then obviously there's our patron, our premium content, Lair magazine. that goes out to all of our patrons every single month too. So these folks get Lair magazine. So they make possible literally what we do. So I'm very deeply appreciative to all of our awesome patrons. Now, this next screen here of wonderful patrons pay even more money. I consider it a bribe. Thank you. I am acceptable. I am vulnerable to bribes, I suppose. So these folks get their names read out loud on the stream, every single live stream that we have. So let's do this. ME Magic, 5E Magic Shop, Aaron J, Alex, Alex S, Amanda W, Ambers, Andrea S, Andrew U, Angelique K, Antoine B, Art Soccer, Arutha, Ashley, Baldwin J, Ben B, Benjamin P, Burncastle, Bradley H, Brandon A, Carl C, Cheduff, Chris C, Christian V, Christine B, Christopher G, Christopher J, Clay W, Cody B, Coinslot, Contrary Gravy, Daniel S, Dap, Daz Was Up, David S, Derek E, Doug, Duty K, Dungeon of Terra, Dutch, Ed R, Edward L, M Frabo, Endorian, Eric B, Erno T, Fabian H, Flux Floresbrew, Gabriel T, Gallus, Gene A, Jeff R, Goliath Cleric, Gravy Chorn, Gregory H, Harlan S, Heather L, Helltongue, Iron Cascade, Izzy T, Jace F, Jackie Pizza, Jake L, Jacob K, Jelenko, James L, Jan F, Jason G, Jessica J, Jim P, J M, Joan P, Joe E, John, John A, John H, John Picanas, Jonathan V, Joseph H, Josh R, Josh S, Joshua J, R2W, Joshua W, Justin N, Keith K, L, Keith L, W, Kevin F, Kirby, Carrie Claw, Kyle M, Leonhardt, Luke. That's an easy one. I got that one. Magna, Malton M, M, Manuel J, Mark K, Marty T, M, Matthew B. I'm screwing this up today. Matt B, Matthew J, Matthew C, Mike S, Mirostal, Mitchell, Mo 20s, Mr. Owl, Mr. Lincolnu, Nerd with Glasses, Nezzy, Nick W, Nomad, Old Man Mage, O&D, Penguin Butt, Pork Chop Bacon, Prophet 2.0, Psycho John, Published Author, Ramus, Ramsey, Randy B, Rebar, Renner C, Robert J, Robin B, Ron R, Ryan, Sale R, Sakura, Sam B, Scott V, Sean S, Shadow 1317, Shane L, Sheila A, Snowy Tiggy, Son of a Sofa Man, Soul P, Soul Naya, Stephen G, Stephen T, Tattoo Tokens, Taryn, Terry V, The Old DM, The New Bad Hombre, Thiago P, Thomas C, Thomas F, Tim B, Timothy T, TK, Traveling Cash, Travels the Lost, Tyler H, Tyler R, Valagor, Vladimir S, Walt O, Will M, William C, Worth a Lot, XX Redrub, Yol R, Zachary J, Zombie Tommy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You are awesome. Okay, let's go back to my camera. All right, I need to put my dog down and we're gonna answer questions. My goal today, is to answer every single question that comes across the board. Obviously, if the question comes after our end time, I'm not gonna answer it because, yeah. But if you put a question in, I'm answering it. Unless, of course, it's like inappropriate or it has to do with politics or something else that I'm not going to talk about. Like if you put a trap up there to try to make me say something that will like, get me canceled or something, then I'm just going to like not step in your trap. I mean, unless it's a really good one. Like but don't do it. Anyway, I'm gonna put my dog down and we're gonna do this. All right, Joey. Calm down. Calm down. All right. Now I have dog hair all over me. I literally have like one of those hair rollers, that you use to get pet hair off from you. And I did that before the stream. And now I'm back to where I started. So, there's only so much I can do around here. Okay. Questions. How can I make 1v1 combat more interesting? Why? I want to be more dynamic and not just attack versus attack on the same spot. Thanks. You're screwed. I mean, what are you going to do? The rules do not support 1v1 combat in the way that you want them to. Like, they literally don't. If you have one combatant versus one combatant, the D&D 5th edition rules, really, you're going to go toe-to-toe and you're just going to be trading blows. There's nothing else for the rules. Like, if you want to stick to the rules, you're screwed because the rules don't support it. I mean, if you really want to get technical, the 5th edition rules for combat are pretty basic to begin with. You don't really have a whole bunch of special maneuvers anyway, in the core rule set. Now, certain classes might get special abilities they can do, but the core rules don't support a whole lot beyond like maybe pushing and shoving and grappling. right? So your options are fairly limited anyway. So you really, if you want to make 1v1 combat more interesting, you're gonna have to homebrew some crap, dude. You're gonna have to homebrew some stuff. You're gonna have to get deep into different tactics and options that people can use in 1v1 combat. And once you start to get deeper into tactics and options you can use in 1v1 combat, right, you're expanding upon the rules, you're making the rules more complex and longer, right? You're gonna have to develop those rules, or find on like maybe Drive Through RPG or somebody has made like some special rules for 1v1 combat to make it more interesting. You're gonna have to either make those rules yourself and balance them maybe, right? Or go find some rules that you can implement. And then you're going to have to explain those rules to your players or your player, right? And so then you're gonna have to walk them through that 1v1 combat. You're gonna have to teach them and then walk through that 1v1 combat. And that's gonna take a little bit of time, right? And so if you want to accomplish that, that's what you're looking at. However, I would like to ask that whenever you want to do something like this, where you're expanding upon the rules, you're pulling in new rules, you're creating homebrew rules, you need to ask yourself, am I adding like 3 times or 5 times the value measured in fun to the game as I'm adding in rules, like the cumbersome nature of rules, the complexity of rules? Because if you're not making the game 3 to 5 times more fun by adding those rules in and increasing the number of rules that we need to know and follow, then I say it's not worth it. Like, if the game is just as fun as it was before, but you're adding more rules and more cumbersome nature of rules and having to memorize them and follow them, like that is a net loss, in my opinion. There is a balance to be had between adding in more rules and playing the game and having fun. Like, you can more and more rules, but the game doesn't get any more fun. It's like, why are we doing all these rules? Like, if the game was this level of fun beforehand, then why did I add all of these rules in? It's like, there are so many Kickstarters, right, that will give you rules for like, let's create like mass combat rules, and you have a 200-page Kickstarter. Or you have like, I don't know, let's create like, you know, where we can build castles and like rogue dens and stuff like that, like what strongholds or something, right? And you have like 200-page rule books for these things. And like, some groups are gonna find those to be amazing because it increases the fun so much, and they don't mind the rules. Many groups, though, are gonna get those books and they're never gonna use them because the dungeon master or the person who bought it is super excited about it and they want to do it, but the rest of the group is kind of like, dude, I'm not gonna read that book, man. You know, you're gonna have to explain it to me. And then it just kind of flops. It doesn't work because it's so many more rules. It's so much more information, and it doesn't give you a proportionate increase in fun in the game, right? And so the question you need to ask yourself for the 1v1 combat thing is it worth it? Is it going to be that much more fun? And ask yourself too, if I have one player going toe to toe with an enemy, right? Like, what are the other players doing? Are they going to sit there for a half an hour to an hour, literally doing nothing, watching a 1v1 combat? Like, is that going to be fun for them? Maybe once. But if you do it much more than once and they're just sitting around looking and watching a 1v1 combat, they're not having fun. They might politely go along with it, but I would submit to you that they would have more fun if they were playing the game, right? As opposed to just watching a 1v1 combat. So I feel like in the specific case of a 1v1 combat, that is not in my opinion, that is not a good use case for expanded rule sets to make it more interesting. I think that if I had a 1v1 combat in my game, like I think once, we used the standard rules, the combat was over in maybe 15 minutes. Now the other players enjoyed it because it was a close combat and there was some going back and forth, and they weren't sure if the player was gonna win or not, and there was a lot riding on it. So the group enjoyed it. I could see on their faces that they thought it was fun. But if that happened a whole lot, I think it would get old and boring. So we just used the standard rules because it was easy to implement, the battle was over quickly, and it was enjoyable. And I don't think that, and because I run group games and I want everybody to be involved, I'm personally never going to make 1v1 combat that big of a thing because everybody's just watching, they're spectators at that point. So I think there's a lot for you to consider there, but if you really, really want to do it, my recommendation for you is to find homebrew or find some rules that are very rules light. One page of special combat tactics that you can use in a 1v1 combat. Things you can only use in a 1v1 combat. One page, that's it. So spice it up a little bit, but keep the rules down to like one page. Now, the thing is you're usually gonna have a hard time finding homebrew rules that are just like one page, because most people who publish this sort of thing need to make money. And so they know that if they give you one page, nobody's going to pay a lot of money for that. And so what they tend to do is they tend to expand these things into 25 pages, 50 pages, 200-page book, because once you get up to this big, thick book, they know they can charge more money for it. It's just the way things work. And so it might be challenging to find a very rules light rule set, but it could be out there. I don't know. I've never looked for one. But my recommendation is you want things that are short, very, very short, so it can be quickly explained to your player, quickly implemented, and doesn't add a whole lot of complexity to the game. That's my recommendation if you want to go that route. That was a long answer. Spell dueling. I love the new spell dueling concept, but a couple of questions. Do you feel like this strengthens the classes like Warlock and Sorcerer that are limited on spell choices? Can another caster help duel? I think you're referencing our homebrew spell dueling rules that we put out like a month or 2 or 3 ago in Lair magazine. We had an entire portion of Lair magazine, I believe it was called Arcanum, where it expanded on a lot of the spellcasting rules and different options. I think there was an additional feat for spellcasters. We introduced the idea of opposition schools of magic again and gave certain benefits and stuff for implementing it in your game. So does Goliath Cleric, do you remember what issue of Lair magazine that was that we put Arcane Arcanum in that has our spell dueling rules in it? I'm just curious because that's what Freight Train is referencing. And do I think that it strengthens classes like Warlock and Sorcerer limited on spell choices? Potentially, because they don't have to specifically take a counter spell and they just automatically are able to spell duel. Yeah, it could strengthen them a little bit, potentially. I don't know that it's that big of a strength increased, because if you look at it as well, a wizard still has to have counterspell prepared. Like, you can't just have it in your book. You still have to prepare it. So it's taking up one of your spots, your things that you have to prepare. So I think that you still have a commiserate cost if you're a wizard. So you might make an argument that it strengthens it a little bit, that they don't have to actually learn counterspell because they can cast arcane spells. They just get access to counterspell. You might make that argument. I don't think that it's that big of a deal, honestly. And we're giving perhaps arguably a power boost, a small one, to some of the classes like Warlock and Sorcerer from the core rulebook, which probably pale in comparison to some of the new options that are coming out. So I don't think that it's a game breaker, in my personal opinion. How do you deal with a player who fudges their rolls? It doesn't happen often, but when they roll 15 plus 5 times in a row, it starts to get frustrating. So it sounds like you're probably playing in person, because virtual tabletops eliminate this problem. If you're on Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or whatever else, you can see their rolls. So you must be in person. So we had a player like this. We had a player like this once. Oh. My group constantly references some of the stuff this player used to do, but one of the things that he used to do was he would literally build like a fortification around himself. Like on one side, he had all of his books piled up, stacked up nice and high. And then in front of him, I think he had like Monster cans or Mountain Dew cans or something, providing like a frontal wall, to his area. And then the other side here, he had stuff over here, maybe his food or something, I don't know. He literally had, at the game table, he had a fortification built around his area at the game table. And he was on the other side of the game table from me, I couldn't see anything. But even the players next to him probably would have a difficult time unless they're like, eyeballing his rolls. But this dude was the same thing. He was rolling high every single time. Rolling high every single time. It was like predictably high. So for me, like I was pretty sure, and every other player at that table was pretty sure that he was cheating on his rolls. We were pretty convinced. Now, that in and of itself, in my book, it depends on the rest of the players' behaviors. I might just not do anything about that, in all honesty. That might not be one of the battles that I want to pick with a player. It might not be. You know, you don't, like, there are gonna be some people that get upset right now and they're like, cheating is cheating, Luke. And if they're cheating, you gotta put a stop to it right now. And you're gonna get all like foaming at the lips and stuff. And it's like, whoa, let's just chill out a second, okay? It's a game, all right? We're playing a game. So you have to ask yourself, right? Is whatever thing they're doing worth my taking action? You must ask that for everything that happens. And then you make a decision. Like, is this thing they're doing worth taking action on? Or do I just ignore it and let it pass because it's just not worth my time and effort? Like, I can't fight every battle, right? There are some instances of metagaming that I'm gonna stop because, whoa, no. There are other instances of metagaming that I'm like, whatever, who cares? Then there are other instances of metagaming that are desirable for the game. And I think I made a video on metagaming where I talk about there are definitely some types of metagaming that are desirable. So you can't step in for every offense and get all like, Murr! Because then you're gonna have a heart attack when you're like 30, dude, right? It's a game. We wanna relax and play and have fun, right? So some things maybe you don't mess with. So in my opinion, fudging dice, maybe I don't mess with that for a little bit, but I'll tell you what does happen, and what did happen in our game. Everybody started making comments to this player about always rolling high. Like, we started making comments, man, you always roll high, dude. Wow, look at those high rolls. Look at those high rolls. And I'll tell you what, he started to get the feeling that we didn't say, hey, you're cheating. We were just making these little comments because we had been playing together for a long time, right? We started making these comments, you know, hey, you're rolling really high. Hey, whoa, man, you always roll pretty high. I'll tell you what, there was a point where there was one game in particular, I think he finally got upset and he was just like, threw the dice down and he's like, I rolled a 2, okay? You know, and all that stuff. I don't know if at that point he was intentionally lying about his dice rolls and making them lower, or whether he was legitimately rolling, he was just saying what he rolled, but I could tell he was getting upset. But you know what? If we were like 99% convinced he was cheating, and we were just mocking him, poking fun at him, you know, about the dice rolls. And this is what friends do when you're around the table, you know. Some people are gonna get upset and be like, that's not professional. It's like, dude, when you relax, when you're friends and you're having fun at the table, that's what you do. You know, you poke fun at each other and stuff, you know. Well, it got to him eventually, and then he got the point that we were calling him basically on cheating on the stuff. And so, but what I'm driving at too is oftentimes when you have a player that's doing something like cheating on dice rolls, there are other problematic behaviors that happen as well. In my experience, other things accompany this, such as power gaming, such as arguing with the dungeon master about things, such as blah, 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 blah. And so a player like this usually brings other stuff with him that is undesirable, because his desire to cheat and win, if you're cheating on dice, that is an indicator of an underlying, let's just call it a problem. I don't know if it's actually a problem, but it's an underlying desire. There's a root cause underneath there that's causing you to cheat at your dice rolls and lie about your dice rolls. And if that thing is there and it's causing you to do that one thing, those tendrils are gonna probably reach out and touch on other problematic behaviors that are going to manifest with that player as they're playing at the game. And so you're probably gonna see other things happening that are undesirable. And then you start to look at, okay, now it's not just the cheating on the dice rolls. Now we have these other things that are going on as well. And when taken as a whole, cumulatively, you say that's an issue that needs to be dealt with. Now, player in question, I had 2 private conversations with this player discussing some of their other problematic behavior that they were engaging in, asking them to cease and desist, right? And finally, that player was asked to leave the game, essentially. There was a meltdown in one game session where I literally lost my cool and ended the session early, right? And I think that player had done something. And I think that the player knew that it was over, and so they messaged us saying that they were going to withdraw from the game before I spoke with them about leaving. And it was like, that was actually, it saved me from having to have a difficult conversation, in all honesty. They recognized that things were going down a bad path, and they basically in job terms, they resigned before they could get fired, and so it was an amicable solution in my opinion, because they saw the writing on the wall and they decided to leave before I had to have that conversation. So it saved me the trouble, because those are hard conversations, but it needed to be done because the sum result of all of the things that were going on were making it so that the game was not as fun as it should be. I don't want to say the game wasn't fun, because we were still having fun, but their behaviors and the things they were doing were detracting from the game, were detracting from the fun. They were causing frustrations for me. The other players were getting frustrated. And so the writing was on the wall, so to speak, that action needed to be taken. I talked with them twice. There were still issues. And it was like, okay, now we're just going to have to, it's time to part ways because this is not working out. This is not a good fit. And so that's what happened in this particular case. But it was not purely because of fudging dice rolls. There were lots of other things going on that we tried to address, that I spoke with them about, that weren't changing. And eventually it resulted in, we're gonna have to leave. You're gonna have to leave. So, and then we, after they left, we had the quality of the games, the fun, it went way back up. Because all of those problematic little behaviors were removed from the game, and we all had a lot more fun. I had this experience before too. There was another player, probably a couple years before this particular player, that I removed from a game too. And we experienced the same thing. Once that problematic player was removed from the game, our next game session was like way more fun. It's kind of like if you've ever been out hiking and you're carrying like a 50-pound pack. I go hiking every so often, and I have like this military backpack that I stuff with all of this stuff so that it's like pretty heavy. And you'll go hiking. I go hiking. It usually takes me an hour and a half to do my hike in the park. And then when you get done with that hike and you take that pack off, oh my word, you feel so good because that weight is off your back. And while you're hiking, you don't really notice the weight. You get used to it. You're just hiking along and you got a big pack on your back. You get used to it, right? But when you take it off, you realize what a difference it makes to remove that pack. And so I will use that metaphor of when you have a player in your game that's dragging things down, you might not recognize how much less fun you're having and what effects they're having on the game. But once you remove them from the game, it's a noticeable night and day difference of how much more fun you're having. It's the same way when my Curse of Strahd group was playing online over Roll20 during COVID. We played online for 1.5 years, I think. And we just played online and we did not really notice a difference. But when we stopped playing online and went back to in person, oh my word, we recognized immediately how much more fun the game was playing in person around a table. It was just a night and day difference. And so it's the same thing. Like I didn't really notice the fun going away when we transitioned from in person to Roll20. For whatever reason, I didn't notice the difference. But then when we went back to in person, it was like, wow, so much more fun playing in person. So it was another situation where there was a similar thing where you don't really notice that something is wrong until you experience the opposite, and then you're like, wow, what a difference. And so as far as back to the removing players from a game, every time that I have removed a player from the game, I've always, and this is obviously hindsight 2020 vision, which is perfect as we know, I've always thought to myself, why didn't I do this earlier? Why did I wait this long to make this decision? Because the game could have been improved so much more, so much earlier if I hadn't have drugged my feet to make this decision. But it's difficult you can't know that stuff in advance, so my recommendation is always to don't tolerate behavior that you feel is bringing the game down. Take action sooner rather than later to resolve things one way or another, because your game will benefit from it. And remember, we're not doctors, we're not psychologists, we're not counselors, we're not therapists, okay? Our Dungeons and Dragons games are supposed to be that, games, right? You are not beholden to try to help somebody resolve their personal problems. You're not. We're game masters, we're players, we're playing a game, we're trying to escape. Most of us, including me, are trying to many times escape from the pressures of reality, of real life, to have fun and relax, to escape mentally to a fantasy world where we are heroes and where we are awesome. It gets us out of the real world where many times things don't go our way. And so if that's what we're looking for in this hobby, this relaxation and just this, let's go to a happy place, so to speak, you know, like, are we tolerating a player, somebody who's just bringing things down, you know, it's like, why? That's not what we're here for. You know, they if they need professional help, they should get professional help. This is a D&D game. This is a role-playing game. We're playing Call of Cthulhu. We're playing Pathfinder, whatever we're playing. It's a game. We're here to have fun. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychiatrist. You know, so if there are issues that need to be dealt with, I support that. But this is probably not the place to do it. So don't feel bad about removing players, right? It's not your job or your responsibility to help them through their life problems. If they have issues and problems, then they should probably get help with those, sure. But like, it's not your job as a game master. It's not. So don't feel bad about it. Don't let people make you feel guilty and stuff, because it's really ridiculous, in my opinion. That was a long answer too. We got long answers going on today. I'm gonna have a hard time getting through all of our questions if I keep doing these long answers. All right, I need to get a drink of coffee. I'm gonna give you, listen to the Barbarian. He has something important to say.
Hi, Barbarian here. Did you see my last sleazy plug? You know, the one where I talked about Lair magazine and tried to convince you to become a DM Lair patron? Yeah, well, I'm not gonna do all that work over again. So could you just go rewatch that plug and then, you know, become a DM Lair patron at the link below? Please, you know, just don't make me threaten you with my axe. My doctor tells me I gotta, you know, keep my blood pressure under control. Thank you.
I was, there we go. All right, that was our sleazy plug for our Lair magazine. There's a link down below in the chat if you want to check out Lair magazine. It's really cool. Lots of Dungeon Master resources. My team and I work really hard to create it. Our goal with Lair magazine is, it's literally what it says right here. Easy to use easy to use Dungeon Master resources. Like, we try our very best to make these easy to use. You get it, you read it, you can prep quickly for your game sessions, and you can run amazing game sessions. So if you're busy and you don't got a whole lot of time, Lair magazine is going to help you out immensely. I'm very proud about how we organize and write Lair magazine to make it easy to use. That is, in my opinion, the defining characteristic. Easy to use. You can drag and drop these things into your game. So if you're interested, links and stuff, you know how it works. All right. We are doing a giveaway too. Please make sure there's a link in the chat, wherever the chat is. Woo! We're doing a giveaway today. If you want to sign up for it, we'll draw the winner at the end of the stream. How do you give the party's tank meaning while still role-playing the enemies intelligently? I don't care about giving the party's tank meaning. Like, that's not my job. Like, I don't care. I'm like getting worked up here. I literally don't care that much about what your role is supposed to be. Like, hello, I'm the tank. You're supposed to surround me and hit me. Like, okay. I do care a little bit. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because we are running a game. We have to balance gameplay with realism to a certain extent. So for the most part, but a little bit, like for the most part, as a dungeon master, I'm going to role play my enemies intelligently. If they're intelligent, I'm gonna role play my enemies appropriately. Let us say that. So I had in my game once, there was a guy who had a tank. He was the tank of tanks, the crazy tank. He was a paladin, sorcerer, warlock. I think, was he a warlock? Bard. I think he had 3 splashes. I know he's a paladin sorcerer. I'm pretty sure he had something else in him. He was all splashing it up. He might not have. It might have just been a paladin sorcerer. But he had like an armor class 21. I think 20 or 21. I think it was 21. And then he was able to cast shield. And then he had a cloak of displacement. This guy was unhittable. He was the tank of all tanks. And of course he was a paladin, so he had pretty good damage output too. So he was the tank of all tanks. And the way I really dealt with this is, I tried to roleplay my enemies appropriately. Occasionally, I might toss him a bone, but very rarely. I usually just roleplayed my enemies appropriately. So he's in the front, he's in full plate armor, obviously. He's blurry, you can barely see him. People know he's gonna be hard to hit, but he's still a threat. So some enemies should engage him. They should, they really should. Because you can't just let somebody who's a threat run around unengaged. You gotta at least try to tie him down or something. Now, maybe you commit a couple resources to that paladin, and then the other people try to get the other characters, right? But you do something about it. You don't just ignore him, because enemies wouldn't just ignore them either, right? They might tie him down a little bit, to minimize his impact while they clean up everybody else, right? But they're not just going to ignore him. So a couple people engage him. Now, some instances, however, you know, I would have enemies engage him and just be completely unable to hit him. After 2 rounds of being unable to hit him whatsoever, they stop trying. They literally are like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to hit him. It's impossible. He's hitting us. He's doing damage. Yes, agreed, but I can't hit him. It's impossible, so I'm done. I'm going to focus on somebody else. And that's what they would do. They would start to ignore him. At first, they wouldn't, but once it became clear that it was impossible to hit him, why would you continue expending resources, attacks and stuff if you can't hit him? So many of our combats would, you know what? I don't remember all of our combats, right? So I want to say that most of the time enemies would engage him, but occasionally they would also stop. They would just ignore him too, because they knew they couldn't hit him. Now, also, as that party gained in levels, they gained fame and notoriety. Like, you know, information about the party and how they would operate, and there was this one paladin who was all blurry and unable to get hit. That word of that spread throughout the game world. Like, people heard about them. These characters were like high levels. People knew this adventuring group. They knew who the Sword Coast Guard was. And so word would spread about the paladin who couldn't be hit. And so enemies would hear about that in advance many times, and they would be prepared for that. They would understand what's going on, and that would inform their decisions during the battle as well. Like, so I feel like there's an element of role playing. There's an element of like throwing them a bone for the sake of gameplay, but there's also the element of, listen, you're level 15 now. You guys are famous. Everybody has heard about you. They know that you are unhittable. They know the wizard casts counter spell. They know that the bard does this, and they know that the rogue does this, and they know about you guys. Word has spread. So you're, most of the time, if you're encountering high level bad guys that are very experienced in the world and usually have connections and hear things, then they're gonna know about you in advance. So that's just something that you're gonna have to deal with. Like, if you're a famous person, you know, you don't show up to places and expect that people don't know about you. Like, they're gonna know about you a little bit. You know, it's like you're gonna have George Clooney show up and you don't know who he is. And you're just like, I'm just gonna pretend I don't know who he is. I mean, some people might do that, but you know, right? You know. So that's, I guess, kind of what I do. Man, I'm taking a long time to answer these questions today. That's a bad indicator. I'll have to pick up the pace. By the way, Ashley, I saw that you were in chat. I think she was complaining about how early it is. It's not that early. It's like, for me, it's like 9:30. It's not that early. That's like pretty reasonable time. What is your favorite adventure you ran and what made it so memorable? Favorite adventure that I ran and what made it so memorable? Oh man, I can't remember all my adventures I ran. I'm gonna pick something out. I had an adventure once that I ran where there were some hobgoblins and there was an ogre. The players tricked the ogre. I got the ogre to fight on their side, and that he fought against the hobgoblins, and then yeah, that was my favorite adventure. I made a whole video about it. You can go look at it. And for the record, I don't think that was my favorite adventure, but that's the one that came to my mind right now, and so that's the answer I gave you. I've run so many different adventures. Like, how many groups do I have right now? 1, 2. I have an in-person group, I have my Patreon group, I have my youngling group, then I have all the one-shots that I run. So I have 3 groups that I run currently, 3 campaigns that I'm currently running, and I do a bunch of one-shots all the time. So, and for the longest time, I've had 3 groups going at all times. Like, for the last 5 years or so, I don't know, I've had 3 groups going on at all times. And then I have all of the games that I've ran before. And so there gets a point, like, at least for me, there gets a point where everything just kind of like crushes together and you don't remember details of a whole lot of things. Like, you have to sit here and think or look at your notes and be like, oh, I remember that adventure. That was really cool. So I can't remember things like my favorite adventure. So you just got the one that came to my mind, and I happen to have a video on it called My Players Tricked an Ogre. If you want to go watch it, you can. It's an older video, so I probably suck in it. I was what was it, yesterday? When was I scripting? I was writing a script on Tuesday. I think I was Tuesday. I was writing a script or something, but I ended up watching a little bit of an older video that I made. And wow, it was kind of cringy. I'm sure I'm gonna do the same thing like 2 years from now. I'll look back on videos that I made right now and I'll be like, wow, I sucked. Because you just get better at stuff as you do more of it, you know? What do you do when your players have trouble with being in a sandbox environment? Well, that's simple. You take them out of the sandbox and you put them in a nice linear adventure. You tell them where to go and what to do. Like, I once had a friend who, God bless her, she could not make decisions for the life of her. The case in point, we once went to a McDonald's. This is when I was in college. We went to a McDonald's, I think it was, and I swear she was staring at the McDonald's menu. McDonald's, not Taco Bell. Taco Bell has so many options, it's insane. We're talking about McDonald's. McDonald's, you have burgers and like burgers. So she was staring at the McDonald's menu for, I crap you not, it must have been 5 or 10 minutes, trying to figure out what she wanted to pick off the menu. And I'm just like, I didn't say anything to her, obviously, because I'm not a jerk. But in my head, I'm like, this is not hard. Pick the type of hamburger you want, and then maybe it's a chicken sandwich, okay? This was a while ago, so I don't even know if they had salads and stuff at that point. You know, it was like burgers. It's like, pick the type of burger you want, you know, and decide if you want to make it a combo. This is really the choice before you. And you're sitting there and you can't decide, like, do I want 1 patties or 2 patties? You know, it's like, I don't think there's a difference. It's kind of, it's McDonald's, dude. This was like back in the like late 90s or early 2000s. It was a while ago. Their menu wasn't that expansive. I think they have a whole lot more stuff now. But anyway, she could not make up her mind. So like, if you had a group of players like that, who you put them in an open world, a sandbox where they can do anything and go anywhere they want, they're gonna struggle, right? They're not gonna know what to do. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people are just, that's not the type of game that they are best suited for. It's not what they enjoy. They're in analysis paralysis. They're in choice paralysis. They don't know what to choose. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the nature of who they are as people. And so as a dungeon master, you craft your game accordingly. What those people probably feel a whole lot more comfortable with is having 1 choice, or maybe 2. And so instead of a sandbox, you don't run a sandbox for them. You run what we call a linear campaign. A linear campaign, I made a whole video on the difference between a sandbox, a railroad, and also a linear campaign. I discussed all 3 of these things in a video that I did a while ago. You can look it up on my channel and stuff. But a linear campaign, many people will say that a linear campaign is a railroad, and they're wrong. And I talk about that in that video. But a linear campaign is almost always what a module is. A module, almost any module you buy is linear. They really aren't sandboxes, because to be a true sandbox, you need to be able to go anywhere in the world and have it work. And if you are a level 1 party and you go somewhere in Princes of the Apocalypse that was made for level 7, you're dead. If you are a level 3 party and you go to Strahd's castle right off the bat, you're dead, right? Unless the dungeon master is being very generous and figures out a way to get you out of that pickle. So you might say that some of these modules are designed as sandboxes. I will say that while in a generous sense, you're kind of right, because people can go where they want, they're not really sandboxes, because if you go to the wrong place, you're screwed. And you're going to be in way over your head, and you're going to run away or die or something, unless the dungeon master is really doing some stuff there to make it work out for you. And if they do, that's fair. I'm not saying that's a bad way to do it. And if you're running a sandbox, if you're running Curse of Strahd or something, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that there's only so much you can do with a module to make it a sandbox, because it's really linear. When you have certain parts of the module and different adventures that are designed for certain levels of groups, then at that point, there really is a certain linear path that the module was designed to be played, because it's based upon character level, right? You can go out of level a little bit, but too much and then you get in trouble. So most modules you buy are linear games. They're linear campaigns. So running a linear campaign there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. I submit to you that most groups run linear games. There is a plot hook that the dungeon master gives the players and says, hey, you know, there's a group of goblins over on the road here that's waylaying travelers and merchant caravans, and the king has asked you to go solve that if you would be so kind, and they'll give you a big reward if you do so. That's a plot hook. That's a linear.
they didn't have a choice. I mean, they could say no, they're not going to do it. And then the dungeon master might be like, okay, well then I'll give you a different plot hook, I guess, or something, you know. But that's, you give them a plot hook, most groups understand that, you know, you prepared an adventure, we're going to go there and we're going to go do it. So if you have a group that struggles with sandboxes and they don't know what to do and they're lost, you could just transition to a linear game where you give them a plot hook. They can go and do that thing. Now, what I would suggest trying first though, before you go swing 180 degrees and go from your sandbox to your linear game where they only have one choice, my preference is and this is the way I run many of my games, even if it's sandbox or linear or however you want to phrase it, I usually will give my players a couple, maybe 3 different plot hooks. So they have options, right? You could go do this thing, you could do that thing, or you could do that thing. You have options, but pick one. I feel like that allows them the opportunity to choose what they want to do. So they have freedom, but there are constraints to that freedom. It's not a sandbox world where you can go anywhere and do anything, but you choose things. And I would say too, that even if you are running a sandbox, you should still give your players plot hooks. You should still give them choices. Now, in a true sandbox, they could go anywhere and do anything. Okay, sure. But if I'm running a sandbox, if I'm running what I consider to be a true sandbox, then I'm still gonna give plot hooks. I'm still gonna tell them what some of the options are. You know, hey, you guys have heard this rumor, this rumor, this rumor, this rumor, this rumor, this rumor, this rumor. All right, you guys can go do any of them if you want. And then I would, of course, probably be ready to run those adventures. Or you guys can go just wander and scare something up and hope that I improvise at the game table something that doesn't suck, you know? So there's a whole gamut of ways that you can run the game, you know, and my suggestion is for a group that can't handle a sandbox, and there's nothing wrong with that again, is to present different ways and slowly ratchet it down, limit their options, present them plot hooks until you get to the point where now they feel comfortable. Now they are making choices and the game is progressing and they're doing things, right? That made me think about my point of interest system that I have. I was having a team meeting with the folks who work for me and this week, and in one of my videos I talked about my point of interest system. I mentioned it and it sounds like people wanted to hear about that. So we are going to be publishing our point of interest system in Lair magazine or as a supplement to Lair magazine in 2023. So you can look forward to that. And the reason I bring that up is that when you are running a sandbox game, points of interest are going to come in very, very, very handy for you to be able to run a sandbox a little bit more efficiently and better. Their points of interest are superior to random encounters. We're not talking about random encounters. It's similar to the idea of a hex crawl, but not exactly. It's the same vein, but there are distinctions. So anyway, there's going to be, I'll do a future video about points of interest and we'll publish some stuff for folks as well. So look for that in 2023, either in Lair magazine or it'll be a supplement to it. I don't remember exactly what we planned, but anyway, it's not going to be for a little bit anyway. But all right, next one. And Squeaky, you're a pain in the butt. Boy, that's a big boy. Any tips on how to run a mystery campaign, on how to not give too many or too big, and the opposite, not enough clues, or too little clues, like not big enough? So in all honesty, mystery campaigns are not my forte. They're not what I do a whole lot of. And so my advice is going to be probably limited as far as, like, I don't think I'm the expert to properly answer that question. I will tell you, I'll give you a few different things. First of all, I think that there's another YouTuber called Seth Swarkowski. I can't really say his last name, but I think that somebody once told me that he made a video on running mystery campaigns that was pretty darn good. And so the first thing I would do is probably go try to look on his channel to see if you can find a video about mystery campaigns, because he specializes in running, I believe, Call of Cthulhu sort of games, which are very heavy on the mystery sort of thing. And so I would consider him to be more of the expert to answer that specific question. He probably has a video on it, so go check that out. But what I'll tell you, as far as it relates to clues, is when I do run a sort of mystery sort of thing that has clues, what I try to do is in every scene, we'll just call them scenes, where I try to have there not be any dead ends. Like there should be a clue that is fairly obvious. As long as they look and they don't completely suck, they're gonna find a clue that leads them somewhere. You have to have a way forward in the scene. Like you cannot have a scene where if they don't roll high enough on a roll or they don't look in the right place, they don't find any clues and they're done. They're done. It's the idea of failing forward, I think, in that there needs to be a way for the game to progress. You cannot have a dead end. If you have a dead end and they find no clues, like the game's over or something, or you're gonna scramble as a dungeon master to figure out, okay, they failed their die roll. Oh my gosh, they didn't find the clue. They can't go to the next scene. They're screwed. And then you have a meltdown, right? So there needs to be a clue that leads them forward that they kind of basically have to find. Now, that said, there should also be another clue that is much harder to find, they might miss, that will give them additional information that will be even more useful, or that will take them somewhere else, a special place that they might not have gotten otherwise if they didn't get their clue properly. And then that might give them an additional benefit, or they might be able to get an additional clue that gives them more information, and then they bypass an entire scene, which makes things easier for them. Or you could have, let's say you have 5 scenes. The first scene might just lead to this one, but if they find something special, it leads to this one. And you might have a web of interconnection among your different scenes, because you don't have to necessarily go from one scene linearly to the next one when you're doing a mystery. You have different clues. There might be at least 2 clues at every scene that could lead you to different scenes in different places depending on what you're able to find. So I would have at least a couple different clues. One should be obvious and easy for them to find, so there can be a way forward. And then there should be something that's harder and more difficult to find, and they might not find it, that could give them something extra. At least have 2 clues. There needs to be a way forward, though. You need to have a way forward. So that's my very simplistic way of managing clues when I do run a sort of mystery thing. But again, not an expert, so go look at Seth Skwarkowski's stuff and see if you can find something that's better than what I just said. Pea-meal bacon or side bacon, what is best? I don't know what pea-meal bacon is. I don't know what side bacon is. I'm gonna go with side bacon. I'm going with side bacon. Hi, Squeaky. Can I help you? Would you like to say something? All right, Fluffy Bucket. Squeaky's joining us on the stream. He's like, the camera wasn't good enough. I need to come up here. I'm out of coffee. What's the best gift for someone new to D&D, like a third-party book? If you want a third-party book and you're new to Dungeons and Dragons, okay. I'm gonna give you a couple recommendations. My first recommendation is, I'm very biased because my team and I literally create books for D&D 5th edition. So my first recommendation is biased and potentially a little bit sleazy. And so I'm gonna give you another recommendation that has nothing to do with anything that I produce. That way there's a balance to the sleaze, I suppose. So we have Into the Fae is our very first module that we published. It is made for a level 1 to 5 adventuring group. So if you are looking for adventures to run in your group, then Into the Fae is a great choice for you. We're actually doing a giveaway today. This is a good opportunity to talk about the giveaway. If you want to get in the giveaway, there's a link in the chat. Hopefully it's working. And you can either win Into the Fae, a physical copy of Into the Fae, or you can get store credit on the DM Lair store, where you could get lots of other cool stuff as well. So Into the Fae is a great module, a low-level 1 to 5 module if you're looking for that sort of thing, and it's made to be easy to use. It has read aloud text, everything that you need pretty much to run your game. And it's not just all combat either. It's really made so that there can be non-combat solutions to things, or combat if you want to kill stuff, because that's what we like to do sometimes too. The other thing that we also publish, it's very useful. I mean, I was going to talk about our Lairs and Legends Kickstarter, but we just locked our orders, and so that's really not available for anybody right now until after we fulfill to our backers. Once we fulfill to our backers, once everybody has got the books and stuff, I mean, there might be physical copies that we'll be able to hook people up with on our storefront, but we're also, the PDFs for Lairs and Legends will also eventually, probably soonish, once we deliver the PDFs to our Kickstarter backers and everybody who's pre-ordered and backed has their PDFs, then we'll put the PDFs up on the storefront, the DM Lair store as well. So you could get into the or you could get Lairs and Legends stuff, because that has a whole bunch of adventures in it and other stuff you can drag and drop into your games, like, you know, traps and puzzles. Traps and puzzles are some of the things that people really, really find useful, because it takes creativity and a little bit of technical knowledge of game mechanics to design them well, and so they tend to be more challenging to design. And so, we have traps and puzzles you can drag and drop into your game. We have adventures that are easy to use, read aloud text, digital maps, all this kind of stuff for our Lairs and Legends. Now, the same is true for Lair Magazine as well. Especially if you're looking for digital resources that you can use if you're playing on a virtual tabletop, or if you're playing in person, doesn't matter. But Lair Magazine also has tons of adventures in it, traps, puzzles, magic items. We have villains, we have new monsters, we have standalone encounters, and Lair Magazine comes with all the digital maps as well. You literally can take the digital maps and put them in your virtual tabletop and use them to run your games and stuff. So we try to make it as easy as possible for people who are running their games. So those are a few things that we create that if you're new to D&D and you're a dungeon master, are going to help make your job as a dungeon master easier. It's going to give you some resources to get you going so you can run games. Because a lot of times as a dungeon master, if you're new to the game and you're a dungeon master, you're learning all the rules and all of these things, and then you have to run the game and stuff like that. And sometimes we're not sure where to start with creating adventures, with creating campaigns, with creating traps, puzzles, monsters, and stuff like that. We're just not sure where to start. And so the resources we publish are designed to be easy to use to help any dungeon master, but new dungeon masters as well, so they can start running those cool games, right? And not have to like create everything from scratch. So Lair Magazine's a good place to go. Now, stuff that we don't create. If you're looking for a third-party book, I cannot recommend Kobold Press's Tome of Beasts 1, Tome of Beasts 2, Tome of Beasts 3, and Creature Codex enough. Those are monster books, by the way. As a dungeon master, one of the things that I personally find most useful are new monsters. And the reason I find new monsters most useful is that most of my players have either played D&D long enough that they kind of know what the monsters are, or they just have played with me long enough that we've just used most of the monsters in like the Monster Manual and Volos and whatever the other one was, Morning Canaans. And so for me, I need new monsters so that I can give something fresh to my players. And that's what Kobold Press's Tome of Beasts, Tome of Beasts 2, Tome of Beasts 3, which just came out, and I just got my book. Haven't really looked at it yet. And Creature Codex. Those 4 books right there are filled with monsters that are 5th edition compatible, and I will say, in my humble opinion, are way better than what Wizards publishes. Like the monsters that Kobold Presses publishes usually have like different conditions, different special things they can do, really cool stuff they can do in the game that are way more interesting and fun for me personally. And I believe if it comes to combat as well and using them in the game, they're way more interesting than what I can find in Wizards official stuff. Like Wizards stuff honestly feels a little bland and vanilla compared to what Kobold Press publishes. So if you're looking for a third-party book, especially if you're looking for monsters, cool monsters, Kobold Press is amazing. And here's the other great part about the Kobold Press monsters. They tend to be more powerful. Like if you take a CR3 monster from the Monster Manual and a CR3 monster from Kobold Press, that Kobold Press monster is more powerful than the one from Wizards official publications. And the reason that is a good thing for dungeon masters is one of the current trends that, I don't even know if it's a current trend. One of the things that Wizard just does is they continually introduce power creep into the game. It is a demonstrable objective fact. Whether you like it or not, it is the way it is. Character options, player options are constantly getting more powerful. And so you get more and more powerful characters. And not only that, but as more options are introduced, players find new combinations, which make even more powerful characters. It's just the way the world works. And since Wizards does not give Dungeon Masters any guidance on how to adjust for that power creep, what I like about Cobalt Press monsters is that because they're more powerful, I can put them in my games with characters that are also more powerful, and things might even out a little bit. It gives me a little bit of an edge. I don't have to worry about a fight maybe not being as awesome and epic as I wanted it to be, because my monsters are they're fighting a little bit above their weight class, so to speak, or below. No, my monsters are fighting below their weight class. That's the actual boxing term, I believe, that would most appropriately apply. Anyway, third-party book, Cobalt Press's monsters stuff is the way to go if you're looking for monsters. So there you go. All right, I'm moving on now. Oh, I need to get more coffee. Here you go. The Barbarian has something to tell you.
Hi, Barbarian here. Are you enjoying this content? Would you like to have me guilt trip you really quick? Because here's the thing. My team and I work really hard to create all this content. The videos, the stupid shorts, the TikTok garbage, these Q&A live streams, the adventure creation live streams, all of this stuff. All of the free Dungeon Master resources on the dmlair.com and Lair magazine, which is just amazing and beautiful. Anyway, here's the problem. My team doesn't work for free, and Mrs. Barbarian always wants me to take her out to eat, like every single day almost. And I mean, I like Olive Garden and Texas Roadhouse, but all of those margaritas get really expensive. And you know, if I don't pay the people on my team, they just kind of stop working. I don't get it. Anyway, here's how you can help me help you. Basically, you can just take a whole bunch of cash, you know, put it into an envelope and mail it. No, wait, hold on. Let me think about that. No, you know what? This is the 21st century. Just give me your credit card number. Okay, forget all of that. My lawyers have advised me to instead request that you become DM Lair patrons at the link below. I mean, it still allows you to send me money, but it's legal and you get cool stuff in return. For instance, every month you'll get a new issue of Lair magazine, which contains tons of Dungeon Master resources like adventures, puzzles, traps, monsters, magic items, and more. You see, I'm not just asking for a handout, which is what a lot of people do with their Patreons. I'm actually going to give you stuff in return. So yeah, just, you know, kind of click that link below and become a DM Lair patron, you know, so I can stop putting my foot in my mouth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barbarian. All right, more questions. How frequent is turnover in your Ancient Dragon game? Okay, so the Ancient Dragon game is the game that I run for my Patreons. We have 5 players in it, and they're asking how frequently is their turnover. I would say, let's see, we have 2 players that have been with us from the very beginning. I think we've been playing now for 3 years. That game's been running for 3 years, and 2 players have been there the entire time. So it's $100. That tier on my Patreon is $100. So they've been paying $100 a month for 3 years. So they must find that game fun, because that's a lot of money to pay to play the D&D game. Now the other players, a couple of them are pretty new. Another one's been there for a little bit. Turnover. I'm thinking through things to try to answer your question. I think we probably have historically, we have a player leave about every 3 to 4 months historically. I feel like that's what it comes down to. For one reason or another, a player will leave every 3 to 4 months is what it comes down to. Whether it's because finances, whether it's because something changed in their life and their schedule doesn't support it, maybe they weren't having fun in the game, which I literally do surveys from my, every 3 months I do an anonymous survey to my Patreon players to see if they're enjoying the game. And in the anonymous surveys, they always say that there's like a rank of like a 1 to a 5. Just how much fun are you having? And I've always gotten 4s and 5s. So I think that they all enjoy the game. So based upon the information that I have available, it's usually other things that come up. It's either finances or scheduling that causes them not to be able to play, unless they're lying to me. But it's an anonymous survey, so you're paying lots of money to play in the game. So I don't know why you would lie about if you're having fun or not, because it doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, but the turnover is probably every 3 to 4 months or something like that, you know. But of course, the moment that I say that, we're gonna have the players will just stay there for 20 years because whatever, you know. So I don't know, but that's what it tends to be. I'm running a 5e Gestalt campaign using Covens as Gestalt spellcaster. What wacky mechanics would you run for PC familiars to archmages, aka the PC's shocking grasp recipients? I don't know offhand. I'm sorry, I'm going to pass on that one. I apologize. That's like a creativity question, and I just don't have nothing come to my mind right now. I'd have to sit and think really hard because I've never done that before. Sorry. Do you think, ask on my Discord, join my Discord, ask people on my Discord. I'm sure somebody on my Discord can give you some ideas. If you're looking to crowdsource some ideas, my Discord is the place to ask. There should be a link, hopefully, in the chat for that. Do you think old school hex crawls can work with 5e mechanics? Yeah, absolutely. Like literally, my team and I are going to publish a hex crawl issue in Lair magazine in the future. My dog is getting all excited right now, and that might mean she has to go potty. And that could be a problem. What is it? What month next? Goliath knows. Goliath, Penguin Butt, what month are we publishing our Hex Crawl edition for Lair Magazine? I want to say it's March, isn't it? Is it March? They'll confirm in the chat. But we have a future issue of Lair Magazine coming out that is our Hex Crawl issue. We're going to have basically rules that explain how to run a hex crawl. It's not, I don't know if it's actually rules really, it's more of just an explanation. It is rules, but it's not like a big book of rules. It's really an explanation of how to run hex crawls. And then we literally will give you a hex crawl that has points of interest and has adventures. It's a ready to run hex crawl for you. And that's coming out in March in Lair Magazine. And we're not adjusting the 5e rules at all. You know, the 5e rules, running a hex crawl it doesn't matter what rule system you're really running. Like, I could be running Pathfinder or Pathfinder 2.0. I could be running 5th edition. You could probably run, I don't know, you might be able to run Call of Cthulhu or something and have it be a hex crawl. Maybe. Call of Cthulhu is maybe a different beast. But you could definitely run a hex crawl with 5e rules with like minor adjustments. It's not hard at all. But anyway, if you're interested in hex crawls, Lair Magazine March issue is going to have hex crawls, and we're going to hook you up with a whole bunch of cool stuff. How do I get invited to play a campaign when I do an auditions in one-shots? Tips and approaches to jive better. Yes, I have some ideas. So the idea of auditioning for a game, and I do the exact same thing, by the way. Like, for my in-person game, one of the things that I do is when a current player can't make a game session, I used to do this before, and we got out of the habit of doing it because of COVID and playing online. But what I used to do before, and I need to start doing this again, is I would have a waiting list of players who wanted to play in my in-person game. And when a regular player couldn't make a session, I would invite one of the waiting list players to come and play with us. And essentially, this was their audition. They didn't know this, but this was their audition. We would invite them intentionally to fill in for a regular player so that we would get to know them. So we would know like what their personality's like. Are they a good fit for the table? If a regular player decides to leave the game, then we would have an idea of these people on the waiting list, who is the best fit, and let's invite that person to come play in our game. Like, it's not first come, first serve, folks. This is my in-person, like, D&D game that we get together as friends to play and have fun. It's not first come, first serve, right? My Patreon game is first come, first serve because there's a wait list for it, and they pay to be in the wait list. That's a whole different thing. But for my in-person game, it's like we're going to make sure we pick somebody that's going to fit with the game. And if they don't, and it's a problem, they're not going to keep playing with us, dude, because we're there to have fun and relax, not to like deal with issues. So that we literally would do these sorts of auditions. You know, we wouldn't say that, but that's what it was. We were getting to know them. So tips for you to do well. I mean, I'm not recommending that you don't be yourself, because if you misrepresent who you are as a person over the long run,
who you actually are is going to come out, and they're going to figure, like, if you're a despicable human being but you pretend to be a nice person during these one shots where you're kind of auditioning, then unless you keep up that persona and that facade during the entire course of the game forever, assuming you get in, eventually you're going to let down that facade and people are going to see you for who you are, and they're not going to like you, and you're probably going to get kicked out. So misrepresenting who you are does not help. It doesn't help. So I'm not saying that you should be someone who's different than yourself, because in the long run, it's not going to work well for anybody, probably, you know, because you're going to have to put up a fake persona of who you are to play in a game. And is that really going to be fun for you? Or maybe it's just forcing you to behave yourself and be a nice person. I don't know. But what I would say is that there is a group psychological thing that happens when there is and this is a thing. It happens in workplaces, it happens in teams, it happens in social groups. This is just something that happens. It is what it is. When there is an established group of people and there is somebody new that comes, whether they're auditioning to be in that group, right? Like in this case, or for some other reason, when there is an established group and somebody new comes, there is going to be an initial, this is human psychology, there is going to be an initial, like, you know, friction there. There's the new person, right? There's this in the business world and team building and stuff, there's this idea of norming, storming, and stuff like that. The idea of that when a new person comes on the team, there's going to be friction. The established team is there's going to be an element of aversion. There's going to be an element of rejection to the new person. It happens. I've seen it in my day job when I used to have a day job, and I've seen it on my own team in my business. When there's a new person, it happens. There's some friction, and it takes a while for that new person to fit in with the group and for the group to accept them and adopt them and make them one of their own. It happens. I've seen it. The same thing happens in a D&D group where there is some friction and it takes some time to fit in with the group. So, recommendations for how you can try to make it less friction, right? First of all, don't talk too much, okay? Don't be super outgoing and talkative, because that can cause some friction. Even if it's you need to let them warm up to you first before you start going gung-ho and talking a whole lot, because that can amplify that initial friction, that initial who is this new guy? Now he won't stop talking. Oh my gosh, this guy's so annoying. He won't stop talking and he's so outgoing. Holy crap, Now, if you after some time of playing with them, it wouldn't be a problem, because now you're accepted and part of the group and we all love you, right? So I think that trying to be a little bit reserved and tentative, and it's going to help you if you just go along with what everybody else is doing, if they want to go do this X thing, just support it and be cool and go along with it. Essentially what you're trying to do is you're not trying to not be yourself, but you want to just be a little bit lower key, tone your person. If you're really outgoing and stuff and you have very strong opinions on what you should do, just tone it down a little bit, just kind of be quiet, go along with the group, until they get used to you, and they kind of accept you more. And then you're going to have more freedom to be more, if you're an outgoing person, to be more outgoing, or to, submit your own ideas. Hey, I think we should go do this thing. You know what I mean? Because then you're going to be more successful. Now, this information, what these recommendations that I'm giving you is based upon really my own experience on the things that I've noticed that have been unsuccessful. Now, there could be other things that you could do, and there could be other tactics you could try. I'm only saying this because I have seen very outgoing people that talk a lot get lots of friction when they come into a new group. Lots of friction. And so I think if they would have toned down things a little bit, there would have been less friction. I've done this myself. I was new to a group and I started suggesting, it was a D&D group, basically, and I was suggesting all of these things that we should go do, and there was a lot of friction there because the established group, they all wanted to do certain things, and I was suggesting other ideas, and they didn't like that, right? And so I could feel that there was resistance and friction there, and so that didn't work quite so well. So that's the reason that I gave those two suggestions, because in my own personal experience, I have seen that
backfire. And I think that it could have been done better. So, but you know, that's just my personal opinion off the top of my head based upon reading your question and then giving you my gut reaction. Now, there might be better approaches to it that you could go about that would be better. But that's what I basically have, and take it with a grain of salt because I could be dead wrong. I could be, you know, I don't know. My dog is bothering me. I think she needs to go outside and go potty. I really think she needs to go potty. Are you going to be okay? Are you okay down there? Are you going to go potty? Huh? What are you doing down there? She's like all worked up. I just took her outside before the live stream, so I hope she's okay. All right, campaign plan. I hope she's okay. I might have a dog that poops on my floor on stream, and that would be bad. When starting to write a large-scale homebrew campaign, obviously the nature of D&D is you will never be able to plan for everything, but how far out would be smart to pre-plan? So I have an older video on my channel called Campaign Planning. It's literally just campaign planning, part 1, and I have a part 2. I suggest looking at those videos because there's lots of useful information in them. They're really old and they're probably cringy, but there's useful information there. They're actually some of my most viewed videos, and in some way I'm like, why do people ever watch these videos? They're so cringy, but there's good information in them. I suggest you don't actually plan the details out for campaign planning. You plan things at a very high level, very, very high level. You know who your big bad might be. You know who their lieutenants might be, because your players are probably going to fight lieutenants on their way to the big bad as they get closer and closer. And the lieutenants are all going to be more and more powerful leading up to the big bad. And then there are little minions. We'll call them minions, but they're just like the people that work with the lieutenants and stuff. And those form the adventures, right? And that's all you need. You need to, in my opinion, have an idea of who the big bad is, what they're doing in the game world that's causing conflict that needs to be resolved. That's where the adventuring party comes in. They have to resolve this conflict in the game world. And then you know who the lieutenants are. And then you have an idea of who the monsters, all the little different monsters you're going to use, you know, and then that's it. You introduce plot hooks, conflict, and then you start playing the game. And you only actually plan out an actual adventure. You really only need to plan out one adventure in advance. Like what I do right now for my games is I have one adventure planned out, and then they are on that adventure. And then somewhere toward the middle or toward the end of that adventure, you know, I'll try to figure out where they want to do, what they want to do next. And then I plan the next adventure out. I don't plan out my adventures in detail very far in advance because things might change. The players might decide they want to do something different. So the detailed planning is on an as needed basis. It's a just-in-time system, just in time. But the high-level campaign planning is very vague. In fact, high-level campaign planning might take me, I don't know, an hour or two. Most of it spent thinking. Most of it spent looking through the monster manuals, Kobold Press books to see what monsters I want to use to get inspired. But once I found some cool monsters and I'm inspired and I have an idea for what the campaign is about, I might plan that basic idea out in like an hour, and it's just a rough framework. And because it didn't take me a whole lot of time, I'm not too attached to it. And if things change over the course of play, then I can just get rid of it and we can go somewhere and do something else if needed, because I'm not really attached to it because I didn't spend a whole lot of time working on it. It was just a basic high-level idea that sounded cool that I liked. And so if they want to do something else at some point and they abandon, so to speak, that campaign and go somewhere else, like my current group, my Patreon group has totally abandoned, for all intents and purposes, the campaign, and they're now going and doing something totally different, which I think is fun, and we're having a great time. I am. Then it doesn't matter because you didn't spend a whole lot of time, hours and hours and hours and days and days and days planning your campaign. And so when it gets set aside, you don't, whatever. It was an hour of work. Who cares? I'll come up with something else that's really fun and cool. Okay. I gotta pick up this pace here. We are doing a giveaway, folks. There's a link in the chat if you want to join the giveaway. It's going to be, you can get a physical copy of Into the Fae, or you can get store credit on the DM Lair store. We're going to draw the winner of the giveaway at the end of the stream, which is coming up in about 40 minutes or so. So join that giveaway if you want to get free crap. Who doesn't want free crap? We're also, oh, by the way, Killer Kitty, thank you for tipping $5. Your $5 is going to go toward Canines for Warriors. They're the charity that we're currently raising money for. They are the nation's largest provider of service dogs for veterans. Our goal is represented by this bar right here. We're trying to raise $500 for these folks to help our veterans get service dogs to help them out. And we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Our goal is 500. Once we get to 500, I'll make that donation to Canines for Warriors. So if you'd like to donate and help out our veterans with service dogs, you can do so by tipping. There should be a link in the chat there where you can just follow the link to tip. Good morning. You've mentioned Ari Salvatore's Drizzt books are amazing for combat descriptions. Yes, I grew up reading Ari Salvatore's books. I love his books. They're amazing. I'm reading his books right now. I'm literally reading his books right now. What books have you read that have great world building, locations, and descriptions? I think that Robert Jordan's world building is amazing. Now, I don't know that I recommend reading Robert Jordan's books. I would recommend reading his first 5 books because they are amazing. After that, it really feels like he was milking it for the money because almost nothing happens and things are so slow and dreary. You know, it's like his books are 1,000. First of all, his books are 1,000 pages long. And after the first 5 books or so, you really get the feeling that the first 800 pages are filler and the last 200 pages are stuff actually happening. And so it really feels like he's kind of started to milk it, you know? But the first 5 books are just spectacular. But the thing that Robert Jordan did is that I feel like the world he set up, now the locations, the specific location, I think the world was really amazing. And the plot was amazing. The concept was amazing. Like Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series is epic. Like it is epic in every regard. I feel like there was, after the first 5 books, there was a falter in the implementation. I feel like the implementation of it started to lack because milking it for money, in my opinion. But overall, that series is amazing. The plot is amazing. I think the world building is awesome. There's just so much that series has going for it. And here's the kicker too. When Brandon Sanderson took over writing that, because Robert Jordan was deceased, and Brandon Sanderson took over writing that, oh my gosh, it was like it became amazing again. Like Brandon Sanderson is like amazing as a writer, amazing. So now, so that said, I've read Brandon Sanderson's the last 3 books, I think, is what he did for the Wheel of Time series. I read those, obviously. I finished out the Wheel of Time series. And those 3 books were amazing. But I've never read Brandon Sanderson's other books, and he has lots of other books. I would probably say that his books would be equally amazing. So you probably, if you've already read Robert Jordan, or you don't want to slog through 1,000-page books that have a lot of filler in them, my suggestion after that is to go check out Brandon Sanderson, just because the way he finished out Wheel of Time was so amazing that I have to think his other books are equally amazing. So that's probably a good place to go as well. I really need to read some of his books because, geez, man, he did such a good job on Wheel of Time. It was amazing. He took over Wheel of Time, and something happened in the first 100 pages or first 200 pages. Like something of importance actually happened early on in the book. I was shocked because I was used to having to get through 800 pages of nothing until I got to action, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. He is nailing it. So I loved it. It was beautiful. So there you go. There's some information for you. I also like R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire, I believe is the series. They made the HBO miniseries on it. The Throne of what is it called? Throne of Swords? Throne of Swords? What did they call the series? What was the HBO miniseries called? Those I don't know I remember what it was called. But those books are also amazing. But not because of the location for world building. Like the world building and the locations in R.R. Martin's books are just kind of like meh. His books are amazing because of the politics that's going on, the action that's going on. He excels at other things. But his books are amazing. If you like, what is it called? Game of Thrones. Thank you. If you liked the Game of Thrones HBO miniseries, the books are way better. Like the books are outstanding, except that I don't think he's finished the books yet. I think he hasn't even finished the books, and who knows if he ever will, because he takes a long time to write those books. But anyway, no, yeah, everybody complains about the last season. Here's the thing. If you've actually read R.R. Martin's books, he subverts expectations. Like, he kills off the main character. He kills off the protagonist in book 1. The protagonist of book 1 is dead at the end of book 1. He is a master of subverting expectations. And so I hope that wasn't too much of a spoiler. So if you were shocked and surprised by the last season of Game of Thrones, then you've never read Robert Jordan. Not Robert Jordan, R.R. Martin. Like, Martin is the king of subverting expectations and having something happen that you would never have thought of would have happened. Like, holy crap, how is this possible? And so when I watched season 7, that didn't surprise me. I found it actually enjoyable. I liked season 7, and I was like, yes, here is an author, here is a person that has some, right? Who's not afraid to do something that everybody is going to be like, because what would you expect? You'd expect these characters that you love, you know, to be successful and victorious, and there to be a happy ending and everything is wonderful and oh my word. You don't get that. And there is a part of that that's just cool. It's like, yes, there you go. There's a slice of realism in your world. Because not everything is great and wonderful. And let's have a movie or a book actually, you know, do something crazy like kill main characters. Like if you're reading R.A. Salvatore, Drizzt, come on. Is he ever gonna kill Drizzt? He tried to kill Wolfgar and that didn't work, did it? You know, so like some of these protagonists and some of these books are invincible and you know they're invincible. And that to a certain extent makes the books a little less enjoyable for some people. My dog is getting insistent. She wants to come up on the stream with us. So she's gonna sit here with us for a little bit. So I liked Game of Thrones season 7. I thought it was great. And I know almost everybody complains about it and doesn't like it and stuff, but you know what? I think that worked. I think that was cool. All right, let's do, here we go. Listen to the Barbarian.
Once upon a time, there was a dungeon master named Timmy. He was too busy to properly prepare for his games, and his players all thought he sucked. But then Timmy's mommy got him Lair magazine for Christmas, reducing his prep time and improving the quality of his games. And then Timmy's players all loved him and thought he was the best dungeon master ever. Be like Timmy and become a DM Lair patron at the link below. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Oh, push that button. All right.
What's up, doggy? Gonna hang out with daddy? You hang out with daddy? Yeah.
I gotta answer. Okay, so now we are speed answering. I have a half an hour to answer the rest of these questions. And so now I'm gonna have to answer very quickly to get through all of your questions. I'll do my best I can here. I am the only one with time to be the dungeon master, but I don't know spells well. How do I get practice with spells without slowing down our gaming sessions? You don't worry about that. You can read the spells in advance if you want to. You may or may not remember the details, so that might not be worth your time. I personally have learned the spells as we go. Like when somebody uses this, literally, this is what I do. With some exceptions, there are some, if I'm running a one shot, I might not look up spells because I just want to keep the pace going quickly. But if I'm running a Patreon game for my Patreon campaign or my home game, if somebody uses a spell that I'm not familiar with, I look it up right there at the game table and I read it. And that's just the way it is. Does it slow things down? Yeah, it does. But sometimes you just need to like look things up, because here's the thing. Your players will miss stuff and they will occasionally misrepresent what a spell does. They won't read the fine print. They'll talk about the good things a spell does, but not the bad things. This has happened to me so many times. I think that most of the time it's unintentional and it's just a mistake. I did have a player once that I know for sure they intentionally left out the fine print to gain an advantage.
So I just look up the spells if I'm not familiar with it, and it slows things down, but that's life. You try to do the best you can. You have mentioned the Domain of Dread you made. Any chance it will see publication? Probably not. Well, you know, probably what's going to happen, the Domain of Dread that I created, what's probably going to happen is there is a tier of my Patreon where my patrons get my own personal Game Master notes. That's my $25 tier for my Patreon. If you join at $25, I share with you a Google Drive folder that has my Game Master notes, my personal notes for my personal games, my Sword Coast Guard game, my Hand of Light game, and there are notes in there for my Ancient Dragon game. And my Ancient Dragon game is the one that has the Domain of Dread called the Dark Shards. And so I might have shared some information already there about the Dark Shards. If I haven't, I definitely will at a future point, because right now my players are in the Dark Shards, and so I'm probably being a little bit careful about what I put there because they're my patrons. They could go there and look at the stuff. Of course, there's part of me too that trusts them not to do that because they would literally be ruining their own game experience by looking at my notes. But $25 patrons will get access. If they don't already have access to some of the Dark Shards stuff, they will definitely get access once we're out of the Dark Shards because I'll put my notes there. It's just going to be my notes. It's going to be, you take it for what it is. It's not going to be a professionally published campaign setting. Like, there are no plans to do that right now. Now, at some point, could that happen? Maybe, but the demand for that is not high enough in my personal opinion, and there are so many campaign settings and there's so much competition with that it's not something my team is likely to take on, because it's just there's not enough demand for it. You know, we tend to publish and do the things that people want the most, you know, and so but it'll definitely be available to $25 patrons in my own personal Game Master notes at some point if there's not already stuff there of it currently. I just don't remember what I put there offhand. Any advice on how to deal with players that steamroll others and keep changing their mind as to what they're doing? Well, that's two different things. So if players are steamrolling others, I call them on it. I literally call them on it. Like, hey, dude, let the other person talk. Let the other person talk, please. I'm nice about it, right? I'm nice about it. I'm not a jerk about it. But I basically say, hey, whoa. Let's hold on a second. Let's let Stacy talk, okay? I'll just call him on it. It's you need to be assertive as a dungeon master. You are the unofficial leader of the group, whether you like it or not. You're running the group. You are facilitating that group. You need to be assertive. You need to control how the group runs. And if somebody's steamrolling somebody else, call them on it, make them be quiet, give the other person an opportunity to talk. That's what you do. If you're not comfortable with that, then you should learn to do that because that's what you need to do as the dungeon master, whether you like it or not. It's not that big of a deal. You have the power, right? Power lies where people believe power lies. And then if people keep changing their mind as to what they're doing, if it's in combat, like, that's a different story. It's like, well, you need to make up your mind, otherwise you're going to dodge this round, okay? If it's out of combat or something, at some point, I'm probably going to start just kind of like, you know, pressuring them a little bit. Like, hey, you know, what are you actually going to do? Or if it's the group and they can't make up their mind, I might have them, if they can't, they're going in circles, we might roll for it or something to make up our minds or something. So there are various different options that you can do when somebody can't make up their mind as to what they're doing. A lot of times it involves me putting pressure on the issue somehow, making there be a ticking clock in some way. You know, sometimes I literally will take out a timer and put it on the table, you know, and I don't even tell people what it's for because they're too busy talking, but I'll put out a timer on that table. It's a little sand timer I carry in my bag, all my games, and I put that timer out, and once that time is up, something happens. And I'm literally trying to figure out what's going to happen while the sand is ticking down, you know. So there are various things you can do, you know, when people can't make up their minds. Is that much of a difference? Is there that much of a difference playing in a physical table and playing on a digital one? Yes, Gabriel, hay un mundo de diferencia. And I know you speak Spanish because you spelled physical like you spell it in Spanish. So there's a huge difference, dude, night and day difference between playing at a physical game table and playing at a digital game table. Night and day. The camaraderie, the feel, it's so much more fun, dude.
You have to try out the physical table, playing with your friends or just a group of people. They don't have to be friends. They can just be a group of people in person. Way more fun, dude. Way more fun. Now, your mileage may vary. Some people might find that not to be the case based upon your own personality and stuff like that. But I would say that the majority of people are going to find that playing in person is way more fun. How do you deal with a player who fudges their rolls online? Like their screen isn't shared and their rolls are always above 15. I just want it to be honest gameplay for a better game. Play on a virtual tabletop. Play on Roll20. Like even if you don't, I mean, you could use just Roll20 just for rolling dice. You know, if you're using D&D Beyond, you can use there's a Beyond D&D extension for Chrome that literally will port over dice rolls into a virtual tabletop as well. So find a way for their dice to be viewed online, right? Like that's the best solution, is to be able to see their rolls so there's no fudging possible. You know, that would be my first go-to. Or you just that's your best solution. I'm gonna move on because we have a lot of questions. That's your best solution. My party is like 2 game sessions from entering the forest to look for the hag lair. Any tips to make the searching more fun? Being honest, I'm struggling to come up with an idea. Looking for the hag lair? You could make it sort of like a little mystery type thing with different clues. Scatter some clues around at different parts in the forest to lead them in the right place. Have an interesting NPC that they can run into, a sprite or a fey creature, you know, that is quirky and has an interesting behavior. And if that interaction goes well, that creature might give them a tip or even take them to the hag's lair. So clues, and place some clues that they can find that are fun and interesting, and also an NPC that could make for an interesting moment in the game, I think are the ways that I would go. When doing a homebrew campaign in a pre-built setting, should I get familiar with all the lore or just the immediate surroundings of the campaign? Can I expect players to read up as well? Step 1, get familiar with the immediate surrounding. That's your first thing. Step 2, as you guys are playing, keep on reading the campaign setting so that you're learning more and more of it. But don't wait to play until you've read everything, because you're not going to remember it all anyway. So don't worry about that. Just read the immediate surroundings, start playing the game, and then keep reading and learn more as you go. That's my recommendation. Final thing, no, you cannot expect your players to read on it. No, don't expect that. In my personal opinion, the player that actually does something outside of the game, like write backstories or read up on the game setting or something like that, the player that actually does stuff outside of the game that facilitates gameplay or whatever is rare. Most players, you should expect that they're not going to do anything outside of the game. They're going to show up to the game and play the game, and that's it. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it is what it is. So don't expect your players to do any more than just show up to play. And if that's your expectation, you're probably never going to be disappointed unless they don't show up to play. Now, some players go above and beyond, and we love those players, but I wouldn't expect it because it usually doesn't happen. How would you advise setting the tone for an interrogation? I'm running Mission 2 Thay from Rise of Tiamat tonight, and the book lacks a lot of support for DMs. Yeah, those earlier modules are kind of crummy. I've heard. I haven't read all of them, obviously. Honestly, I'm not sure what you mean by setting the tone for an interrogation. I don't really know what that means. So I'm gonna have to pass on that one. I'm sorry, dude. I just don't know what that means. How much player agency is too much player agency? When it starts to make the game unfun for other people. When it starts to cross boundaries into things that are inappropriate. Those are probably 2 good guidelines. As a DM, I'm terrified of spending too much time preparing something for the players to just ignore or destroy. So now we're talking about something different. This has to do with setting expectations and the social contract.
And it also has to do with you might need a session 0 where you talk about these specific things, to say, hey guys, as a dungeon master, like usually what I do is I create an adventure and I create things, and then you guys go on the adventure and stuff like that. Does that mesh with your expectations of gameplay? Like, are you guys, if I present a plot hook, are you guys, are you guys gonna go do the thing, or are you gonna ignore it and I'm gonna waste my time? Like, what kind of game are we gonna run here? What kind of game do you guys want to play? Are you gonna go around killing all the NPCs and destroying everything in the world? Because that is a session 0 talk. That is something to talk about ahead of time, so you know who your players are. And honestly, if you find out that their expectations of gameplay are different than your own, and they are going to just ignore your stuff, or they are going to just burn your world down because that's what they want to do as players, that might be the moment right there that you decide that, hey, this is not a good fit. Like, I, as a game master, want to run a different game than you guys all want to play, or at least some of you. And so I think it's going to be good right now to just cut it. Like the 3 of you guys want to play a different game than I want to run. So this is not going to be a good fit. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Now, the 2 of you guys, it sounds like you want to run the type of game that I want. You want to play the game I want to run. Great. Let's stick with you guys and let's find some different players. That might be your session 0. If it comes out that there are certain players that have different expectations and it's not going to work out, there is no reason to start that campaign and when it's not going to work. Like, that is the perfect time to be like, nope, sorry guys, it's not going to work, and then find different players. So I feel like that is probably a way to approach it. That will probably, now, is it going to be challenging and difficult because it's a difficult conversation? Yeah, it's a difficult conversation. Your session 0, you decide that 3 of your players aren't good fits and they leave and they're gone. Yes, that's hard. Yes. But better to do it sooner than play for like half a year and be miserable because their expectations for the game are different than yours and they're burning your world down, and then you're not having fun. That's not good for anybody. You're better off having that difficult conversation at the beginning than having your entire campaign and game implode because reasons. How do you feel about detailed encumbrance tracking? It's stupid, I don't do it. There you go, that's a quick answer. Every character sheet has a spot for religion, but not every character uses or recognizes a religion. How do you implement or reward use of religion? Other than, I don't care. Like, if you want to follow a deity or something, that's great. And then we'll do stuff in game to reflect that. One of my players he is a cleric. He follows the deity, the horned god, and there's lots of stuff that happens in game that has to do with the horned god. Because that's just what I do in the game. Other characters, I don't think they have any deity that they recognize. And so guess what? Okay, cool. We don't do anything about your deity or something. There are other things I'll pick about your character that I want to emphasize and will bring out in the game. So I don't care if somebody has a deity or not. If you do, then we'll do cool stuff with it. If you don't, then I'll find something else to do something with. Like, the reward is the same as the reward for anything they pick about their character, right? Yeah. Could you explain quickly how to make an adventure with multiple parts that takes a few sessions? No, not quickly. My adventures end in the same session for the most part. You make the adventure longer, dude. Or you have different locations. So if you want to have an adventure with multiple parts that spans different game sessions, then the immediate solution that comes to my mind is you have 3 different locations. The first location, the first part of the adventure happens here, and you can basically do it in session 1. And then for session 2, you travel to another location to finish the adventure. And then there's a third location where you finish the adventure. Or you could have one location with 3 levels. And each level takes 1 session, and then that's an entire adventure. So there's a couple ideas for how you could do that. So I guess that wasn't that long. That was pretty quick. My dog is like, I'm afraid to put her on the ground because I think she's gonna poop on my floor. So I'm just holding on to her, right, Zoe? I broke the game in 2nd episode. My wife rolled 3 nat 20s and for whatever reason decided to take the drag egg. It saw her and then look her as its owner and at times fights with her? That's not a question. Thank you for sharing though. How do you handle a conversation between two NPCs that happened in front of the players? Do I just change voices? What's your approach? I don't talk to myself in the game. I feel like I don't like doing that. If I actually have a situation where there are two NPCs talking, I will just narratively describe to my players what the NPCs discuss. I don't actually role play with myself like in two different voices. I might do that for a sentence or two, but then I drop it and I just narratively describe what the conversation is, because I feel like it is awkward to me. I don't know that it's a good game experience for my players. I'm not sure. I just don't do it. I just drop it and narratively describe. Can you give an overview of your skill challenge mechanic, or at least point me in the direction to find it? Set up for a sleazy plug. Yes. So there are two places you can find our 5th edition skill challenge system. I did do a video that explains our 5th edition skill challenge system. If my moderators can find a link for that video, they can throw it in the chat, or you can just go search on my channel. It's if you look for 5th edition skill challenge system, 5e skill challenge system, you'll find the video. We also published our skill challenge system in an issue of Lair magazine as well. So if you want the written version, it's also in Lair magazine. If one of my moderators knows what issue of Lair magazine that would be wonderful. You can throw it in the chat. If a moderator could find a link to that issue of Lair magazine on my storefront, you could throw a link to that issue of Lair magazine down in the chat as well. And then June issue. Yeah, and then people can just go get the June issue. If you can find a link to that, Goliath Cleric, and throw it in the chat, I would appreciate that, dude. There you go. There's your sleazy plug. Because skill challenges are very useful. Very, very, very useful. And underused in the game. And the core rules for 5th edition don't tell you how to do it. And so, guess what? Our rules are lightweight too. We didn't create a 200-page Kickstarter on how to do it, folks. It's very, very easy to implement, and our rules make it easy for you. I kind of pick on people who make big Kickstarters for rule sets that don't need to be that long, don't I? I have a habit of doing that. I should probably stop. 20 level 1 to 2 enemies with pack tactics versus 1 level 20 monster. Not a question. Thank you. I don't know what to do with that. You can only answer questions if it's formatted as a question. There's an enemy succubus coming up in my campaign, and I'm worried. Do you have advice on role playing and voicing such a monster so that it's fun for everyone and not icky creepy? Yeah, yes, I get what you're saying, because see, in my home game with my group of friends, we had a succubus once, and because we all know each other and we play with each other and stuff, I had no problems role playing that succubus. Basically, the succubus there was this one character, Nigel. Of course it was Nigel. No, you know what? The succubus didn't actually start flirting with or hitting on anybody. I think Nigel started flirting with her. And so we had like this scene where Nigel was basically hitting on the succubus, and I think he ended up seducing her and stuff too. And then that turned into a whole thing because then there were Cambions that came into the picture, that the group had to go on an entire adventure because Nigel had a thing with this succubus that caused a bunch of hellspawn essentially, and the group had to solve that problem. Nigel was an amazing character, and Aaron was an amazing player. So now, what I'm driving at is that in my group, because of our comfort level and our friendship and how we knew each other, we were perfectly fine with that sort of thing being role played out, right? But I mean, obviously, we never got into any of the details of that. It was all high level, fade to black type of stuff. But you might not be at that level of comfort and familiarity with your players to be able to do that sort of thing. So in that case, yeah, don't go there. Don't present situations and stuff that that your characters, your players are not going to be comfortable with, And so that succubus might do no such thing as the whole seducing thing, which in game usually is what succubuses tend to do. right? So don't go there. You know, don't make it icky creepy if you know that's not the thing for your game table. Just avoid it completely. You don't have to have any other rationale. You can know that it's not the appropriate thing for your game table, so you don't do it. It's as simple as that. One of my 4 players miss about 40% of the sessions. It's time for him to leave. How can I keep them interested in the plot even with them missing so much information? Oh, you have a different question. Oh, okay. I don't want to hold up the other 3 for one problem person. So straight up, if I had a player who missed almost half of all the game sessions, they wouldn't be a player for very long. They don't have time to be in the game, and it's causing an impact to the game. I'm probably going to ask them to either, if they can't play in the game at least 80% of the time, then I'm probably going to ask them to bow out of the game, because it just doesn't work. You can't have a player who's almost never there. If they're almost never there, can they really be called a player, right? And especially if it's causing an impact to the game. So you have two questions. You have 2 things before you. It sounds like you don't want them to leave the game. So then you really just have to find a way to... You're asking how to keep them interested in the plot? I don't care. That's their own fault. I'm sorry. I know I'm being kind of a heartless jerk, but like, if they're missing the game, it's not your responsibility to keep them interested in the plot. It's not. You do so much as a dungeon master. This is not your problem to solve. You run your game. If they're not interested in the plot because they're never there, guess what? That's their own fault. It's their own responsibility. Now, they might have work or something, I understand, and there might be nothing they can do about it, but it's not your responsibility to figure that out for them and to make them interested in the plot. That's not your responsibility. If you want to keep them in the game, that's cool. That's your choice as a dungeon master, but you don't have to solve that problem. You don't have to solve that problem to try to keep them interested in the plot. That's their own responsibility to do that if they're constantly missing the game. Their own responsibility. It is. I'm sorry. You know. I'm gonna move on. It's my 3rd homebrew, and I'm making maps for random encounters and general usage. Is that ideal? How do you pull off random encounter maps and similar content? Yeah, you could do that if you want to. Sometimes for random encounters, I might not use a map. I might use theater of the mind as well. If I'm playing online and there's a random encounter and I don't have a map ready for it, I might just throw them on a black and white grid and really quickly with the color tools, just draw a quick map and make it very fast. You don't have to have something fancy. That's one of the drawbacks of online play, is that there's an expectation of having a cool map for everything. And sometimes that's a lot of work, dude. So you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But my dog really wants to do something.
Sorry, can you wait for Daddy? Just wait for Daddy.
Favorite setting? Eberron. Eberron's my favorite setting. I want to incorporate player backstories into our sessions, but I'm having trouble. A lot of the players have backstories that are already complete, or the people are gone. Help. I have a video about incorporating player backstories, and it's an older video. It's called Campaign Planning Part 1. You can go take a look at that, and it talks about it. I have a concept called character arcs, and the way my cat is going crazy. Little guy, shut up. Shut up. Character arcs are a way to incorporate character backstories into your games. I don't have time to explain it now, but I do have a video that talks about it more. I think I have another video about backstories as well. I got 4 minutes to get through the rest of the questions. How do you deal with player death happening early in a one-shot? I avoid it. I do my very, very best not to have one-shots that are dangerous at the very beginning. Like, if I'm running a one-shot, the early encounters are going to be pretty easy. It's the last boss encounter that's hard. I literally design my one-shots so that people don't die. I do the... Oh, my stream is crashing, it looks like. I'm going in and out. I intentionally design one-shots so that people don't die at the very beginning. It's part of my game consideration. It literally is. Because I don't want them to die early in a one-shot, so I make sure it doesn't happen. You do things for a one-shot that are a little bit different than normal games because it's a one-shot, right? And somebody dying at the very beginning sucks. So I run my one-shots differently than I run normal games. Do we got the alt cover of Drag... Oh, do I have the alt cover of Dragonlance yet? No, I probably need to try to find it. Because the alt cover did look really good. Honestly, you guys, these days, the only reason that I buy Wizards of the Coast books is for the alt covers. Like, most of the content that Wizards is creating these days doesn't interest me very much at all. Because I'm just not going to use them in my game. But if they have a cool alt cover, I'll buy it for that reason alone. I am a sucker for alt covers. I get the alt covers for everything, if at all possible. How do I handle a player who keeps asking for the inclusion of excessive homebrew abilities for his character? No! That's how you handle it. I like the enthusiasm, but I feel he's asking for special treatment. He is. You say no. You say, I'm sorry, I don't use homebrew abilities in my campaign. Or I limit the number of homebrew abilities to 1. You put limits on it and you say that's it, and that's it. You give him a limit. Period, end of story. If he can't handle it and he freaks out about it, well, then maybe he's not a good fit for your game. But you put a limit on it and you just hard limit. That's the way it works. I'm sorry. And if they can't handle it, then maybe they're not a good fit for your game. I think that's what you do. You have to draw a line. You have to put your foot down, right? And call it. And he is asking for special treatment too. And if you give it to him, the other players are going to feel like you're showing favoritism. And they're going to feel left out. And they're probably going to be resentful. So don't go there. Don't go there. You don't want to give special treatment to one player who probably is a little problematic, it sounds like, and have the other players, let's just call them the good players. I'm obviously generalizing and making certain assumptions. You don't want to give special treatment to a problematic player and have your good players be resentful about it, because then that's not good for you. It's not good. You always want to make sure your good players feel welcome and rewarded in your games, because if anybody's going to leave your game, you don't want your good players to call it quits. You want the bad player to call it quits. And I'm obviously making assumptions and generalizing to make a point, right? What would you think of a character that is a changeling with multiple personality disorder? Each day he wakes up and rolls randomly to determine who he is, 4 different personalities. That sounds interesting and cool to me. If a player wants to do that and that's their character concept, cool, let's do it. That's awesome. As long as some of their personality... Like, if one of their personalities is like a chaotic evil person who kills everyone and burns everything down, no, not allowed. Obviously, I'm going to have the same sort of restrictions I would normally have for gameplay. Like, your personalities need to be something that's acceptable in my games, obviously. But that idea is really cool, and I think that's really cool. I would definitely allow that, 100%. Is there an overview index of adventures plus their target levels from Lair magazine? Yes, there is. We do have a listing of all the different adventures and different content for Lair magazine. Zach, would you mind throwing a link to our publication listing down in the chat so that Waring and other folks can see it? I would appreciate that. Thanks, dude. How do you properly balance encounters? I use Pathfinder and it's either too hard or too easy for my players to fight. I'm either making an impossible fight or a bunch of pushovers. So I'm not familiar. It sounds like you're talking about Pathfinder Edition 1. I'm not super... I know that Pathfinder First Edition is based on 3.5, D&D 3.5, which I did play a lot of. And yes, it is harder to balance that. Now, Pathfinder 2.0 I'm less familiar with. I'm reading the book literally right now because my in-person game is transitioning from D&D to Pathfinder 2.0 for reasons that I should probably talk about in a future video. But at the end of the day, in this sort of situation, a lot of times, if a game system is not supporting you as a dungeon master to be able to create encounters that are balanced, then you are really left to your own devices, and you need to use what you know about your characters, your players' characters, to try to tweak things on your own. If it's too easy, then start ramping things up. If it's too hard, start ratcheting things down. You're going to have to use your gut and your experience to just kind of play with things until you find stuff that works. And it's going to vary based upon players, and it's going to vary based upon their characters, because players have different levels of expertise and how well they can do in combat, and characters obviously can have different levels of power to them as well. So it's a gut thing, dude. I have yet to play it, I think, in a game system that actually balances things super well, but I've mostly only played D&D too, and D&D balance pretty much sucks. So I got that one. Okay, last question right here. Do you have a system of rewards for various side quests, fetch, delivery, slay, etc.? I don't have a system of rewards exactly. My side quests tend to be full-blown adventures. So if you go on a side quest in my games, it's usually a normal adventure and you get normal adventure rewards. So I don't have a special system for that. I just give you normal rewards. Now, if you're looking for a different system of rewards, we did publish a rewards system, a special reward system that gives you different things you can reward your players besides magic.
Zoe, you're gonna have to wait, baby. Yes.
It gives you different things to reward your players with besides magic items and gold, which are really the only things that D&D 5th edition puts in the rules to reward players. I think there's a couple other things, the Dungeon Master Guide, that might mention other rewards, but it's very cursory overview of them. It doesn't really help you a whole lot. But the rewards and recognition system that we published in Lair magazine gives you lots of different ideas for rewarding players with. I also made a video that talks about that as well. Zach, if you have a moment, could you find a link to that video about rewards and recognitions, put it in the chat, and also a link to the issue of Lair magazine that has our rewards and recognition system in it. That way folks who are interested can check that out. Okay, there we go. We have finished all the questions, and now we're gonna do the giveaway. And then I'm gonna take my dog outside because I think she's about to pop. So let's do the giveaway right now. This is what I'm gonna do. There are probably some of you who have not signed up for the giveaway. So there is a link in the chat. We'll throw a link in the chat to where you can sign up for the giveaway, please. I'm gonna give you about a minute or so to sign up for the giveaway, and then we're gonna draw the winner to the giveaway. While you are signing up, I'm going to play a sleazy plug from the Barbarian. There you go, enjoy.
Hello, Barbarian here. I'm interrupting your regularly scheduled program with a very important announcement. Now, some of you have been watching the DM Lair for years now, and others of you are new here. And if you're new, that's okay. And if you're really old and you have like gray hair or no hair at all, I mean, that's okay too. We do not participate in ageism around here. In fact, this is an ism-free zone. There are like absolutely no isms around here. In fact, if your name ends in ism, you should leave now. Wait, you know what? Just to play it safe, if you have any of the following letters in your name, you should leave. I, S, or M. Yeah. Anyway, the important announcement. Well, I'm really just going to ask you for money, but I'm going to dress it all up in fancy marketing clothes so that you'll never even realize that I'm manipulating your fragile emotions to make a quick buck. Trust me, this will be the world's best sleazy plug. Won't you please consider becoming a DM Lair patron at the link below? You see, my team and I work really hard to publish Lair magazine every month for our beautiful patrons. And when we don't have enough patrons, well, revenue dips. And when revenue dips, we have to do cutbacks. And well, that's really sad. You see, people always blame companies when they have to do cutbacks, but really it's your fault as the consumer for not buying all their crap. Or it's because they're trying to maximize shareholder value for stockholders. Or, you know, the C-suite could just have their heads up their butts because, you know, that happens a lot. Anyway, I'm not just asking you to throw your money into a hole. When you become a DM Lair patron, you're going to get cool stuff every month. 5th edition adventures, monsters, traps, puzzles, magic items, digital maps, and more. So, if you don't want me to have to fire Penguin Butt and Goliath Cleric, become a DM Lair patron today at the link below. Oh no, I just realized that I have an I in my name. Barbarian has an I in it. I guess I'm gonna have to fire myself. Bye now.
Okay, here we go. For the giveaway, let's do this. Drawing winners now. Draw Zoe. She's gonna pop. Gotta get her outside. She's totally gonna pop. Oh. All right, hold on. Let me verify. Hold on, buddy. Hold on. I know you're gonna pop. Hold on. We're gonna get you outside. All right. All right. The winner is Hunter Burks. You have one dude. I will send you an email and we will get you hooked up with your reward into the Fae or DM Lair store credit. So congratulations, dude. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. We are done here. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you some other time. We're going to be here next week. Same time, same place. We're going to create an adventure together. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much for hanging out. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I'm going to go take my dog outside now. I gotta stop the stream. How do I do that? Whee!